On Q2, a glimmer of hope.
Understanding that this would help us, and I think that's what Treasury ultimately decided to do.
The Stillwater mine announces they'll receive a tax break in the wake of a recent layoff and cutback announcement. But will it be enough to actually save the mine? Plus, a historic announcement.
I formally apologize as President of the United States of America.
President Biden becomes the first president ever to apologize for the country's influence in the Indian boarding schools, with many communities in Montana listening with all ears, and immersive artwork.
It opens up their horizons, it opens up their opportunities.
Billings disabled residents get the chance to try their luck in the art realm. We'll have the sights and sounds of another Eagle Mount field trip in a bit. The MTN 430 News on Q2 starts right now. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Charlie Klepps. Some good news tonight for the Stillwater Siboney mine after what's been a tumultuous last few months. The final wording of a section of the Inflation Reduction Act is going to give the mine a 10% tax credit on majority of their costs. It's a big step in helping them get back to full production just a little over a month after announcing a substantial amount of layoffs and cutbacks. Our David J. has the latest on what this means for the mine going forward.
The tax credit means that Siboney Stillwater can do some more work at the mine. It's not going to affect the current layoffs, but the union is still looking at it as a positive, saying that it could mean more jobs in the future. Months after announcing major layoffs at Siboney Stillwater, the mine has been handed a much-needed boost from Washington. The Treasury Department rewrote and clarified the rules as part of the Inflation Reduction Act, giving the mine a 10% tax credit for its mining of platinum and palladium.
They understood the importance of incentivizing critical minerals production right here in the U.S.
Heather McDowell, a vice president at Siboney Stillwater, says the original rule allowed only the refiner of the critical minerals to claim the tax credit. Stillwater does nearly 70% of the work before sending the minerals to a refiner, and the IRS and the Treasury Department recognize that.
It's a really meaningful change at Treasury on an issue that is frankly controversial on the federal level. We really appreciate the consideration that Treasury gave our situation.
The credit will help the company as it pursues capital projects over the next 15 years.
There's a lot of shaft maintenance. There's a lot of just old installations.
Dan Balasak is the president of the United Steelworkers Local and appreciates the need for the company to invest in projects.
The future is important to all of us because these were the mines that we built. And in order for them to succeed, we have to make these plans work.
And while this will not affect the layoffs scheduled to start on November 12th, Belasak says it may bring some jobs back in a few years. Siboney Stillwater had initially looked at cutting 566 union jobs, but worked with the United Steelworkers to save about 50 of those workers.
We will be able to put them in these more flexible roles and really create full-time positions where those wouldn't have existed before.
Plans and just add folks back into the mix.
A year of major changes, and while the new rules are something to celebrate, McDowell realizes it's a difficult time for miners and their families.
What we hope it will give people is hope. We really want to give people hope.
Every one of us has a dangerous job, and it's hard to keep focused when you don't know what your future holds.
In Columbus, David J., MTN News.
Investigation is ongoing in the Northern Cheyenne Reservation after a tragic incident took place Wednesday. Details are still sparse, but the Northern Cheyenne Reservation was in lockdown after what community members confirmed was an incident involving a shooting. The victim in the shooting has been confirmed as an elementary-aged boy who attended St. Labray School. Northern Cheyenne confirmed the boy passed away this morning. FBI is investigating, but at this time there are no updates about a potential suspect. And today, President Biden made history, becoming the first president ever to issue a formal apology for the country's influence in Indian boarding schools. White House correspondent Serena Marshall reports on everything Biden had to say.
I think it's long overdue.
For generations, it amounted to government-mandated kidnapping, forcibly removing children from their families, their culture, and their homes with the goal of integrating Native children into white society.
My father was placed in a boarding school, as young as 5 years old. I know my grandparents were placed in boarding school as young as 2 and 3 years old. They weren't able to have any type of identification, whether it's regalia, whether it was an eagle feather, whether it was the language.
Today, President Biden apologizing to Native Americans like Lynette Gray Bull, a member of the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, for the atrocities carried out with the support of the federal government. Throughout the 19th and early 20th centuries, what has been described by the Department of the Interior as a, quote, horrific era in our country's history. It's a story Interior Secretary Deb Haaland knows all too well.
I almost can't put it into words what it will mean to me. My grandparents were taken away to boarding school, so I understand and have experienced how that terrible era affected my own family.
417 schools across 37 states or then territories. The report also confirmed nearly 1,000 children died while attending the schools.
For so many years, it seemed like Indian country was invisible. Folks looked at us as if we were living in the past, right? And now they recognize that, yes, we have whole, full communities who stayed intact, who persevered through all of the terrible assimilation policies of this country.
President Biden also outlining his administration's investment in tribal nations, including $32 billion from the American Rescue Plan. It's the largest direct investment into tribal nations ever made. Serena Marshall, Scripps News, Atlanta, Georgia.
Biden's speech is sending shockwaves around Native American communities here in Montana, much of whom have family that spent time in boarding schools. The speech comes just 50 years since the Indian Child Welfare Act was passed, which was the first time that the parents could decide whether or not to send their child to boarding schools. All of this was part of a simulation beginning in the 1800s, which led to the death of hundreds. One Northern Cheyenne man who actually spent time in boarding schools as a child says the apology is long overdue.
Anyhow, that has been centuries too late. I'm glad Biden is doing that, but that is centuries too late. And I think there are other restrictions that will mean that not all restrictions are going to be taken away.
At this time, there are no signs of reparations being a part of Biden's apologies.
On this Friday afternoon, a fairly quiet weather day from Montana, Idaho, and Wyoming. We had a chilly start with some of the coldest lows of the season thus far, but we now have some high clouds moving our direction, and that's going to influence our temperatures by tomorrow morning. So I'm keeping my eye on increasing clouds, the slightest of chances for showers during the overnight, but not much is going to happen. We'll have a cool start to what's going to be a mostly sunny and warmer Saturday, but there are other changes. I'll have your forecast all the way through Halloween and the first day of November coming up in a few minutes.
And the investigation continues into the death of a Belgrade man that was brutally murdered near Big Sky just a couple weeks ago. Gallatin County Sheriff says they are asking for the public's help in locating various items, including an axe and several guns, which were taken from the campsite where Dustin Gersom was found. Initially, Gersom's death was called in as a bear attack, but upon investigation, the sheriff's office found that foul play could be involved. The sheriff is also hoping for trail camera video from anyone that was in the area at that time. Billings Public Schools passed a resolution earlier this week regarding some state funding. The resolution was voted on by the Board of Trustees, who passed it in a 6-3 vote. The Board of Trustees says the resolution will combat the recent inflationary shortfalls identified in the Montana school system and will be effective for the 2025-26 school year. According to the Montana School Boards Association, inflation has let public schools in Montana short by roughly 10% of their general fund budgets. Superintendent Erwin Garcia says it's a big step forward in helping fund Billings schools.
The more we use public funds to fund private education, the bigger the gap. It turns, the bigger the gap that is left behind for the districts in the context of what I just mentioned, teacher pay and issues with affordability.
Garcia hopes that the additional funds will help entice teachers to work in Montana, as many schools around the states have struggled to fill positions. And all of these political discussions being had as we continue to close in on Election Day. Now just a few weeks away, Tester and Sheehy proves to be a tightly contested race, and on the national scale, the presidential race looks like it'll be dead even. The expectation for many is that the race will decide the winner by a very narrow margin, with every vote counting. Here's a look at what both candidates are up to heading into the final push.
For the first time, President Barack Obama is sharing a campaign stage with Vice President Kamala Harris. The Harris-Walz campaign hoping to capitalize on his continued popularity with the Democratic base with a jolt of energy and enthusiasm. The former president saying America is ready to turn the page.
Because together we have a chance to choose a new generation of leadership in this country and start building a better and stronger and fairer and more hopeful America.
To a crowd of 23,000, the largest of the campaign cycle yet, at a high school football stadium outside Atlanta, the star-studded lineup, including Tyler Perry, Bruce Springsteen, all talking about early voting, Harris's strength, her empathy, and emphasizing Harris's own closing theme of the election season: former President Donald Trump is a threat to democracy.
Donald Trump is running to be an American tyrant. He does not understand this country, its history, or what it means to be deeply American.
The vice president hitting that message as part of her closing argument with just 11 days to go. She painted Donald Trump as someone who will act on his own worst instincts because he won't have people who could control him, pointing to aides like retired Marine and his former and longest serving chief of staff, John Kelly, who came out this week calling him a fascist.
There's a choice that everybody has. It's either Donald Trump in there stewing over his enemies list, or me working for you, checking off my to-do list. You have the power to make that decision. It is your power.
Harris's sharper critique, repeatedly now describing Trump as a fascist, came the same day the former president made this vow about special counsel Jack Smith. He's the one who brought 2 federal indictments against him in the past 18 months, investigating Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election. On conservative radio show Hugh Hewitt, he told him he'd fire Smith in 2 seconds.
No, I don't think they'll impeach me if I fire Jack Smith. Jack Smith is a scoundrel. He's a very dishonest man, in my opinion. A very dishonest man. And they picked a mean man. He's a mean man, but his problem is he's so mean that he always goes too far, like the raid of Mar-a-Lago. You know, I'm going to sue them. I am suing them, essentially. But I'm suing them for raiding Mar-a-Lago.
Trump was also stumping out west last night, focusing in on immigration. And it's no wonder both sides are sharpening their message, their rhetoric against the other. With 11 days to go, the latest New York Times Siena College poll found Harris and Trump tied 48-48. And that's not in the battlegrounds. That's for the popular vote. It may explain why both candidates taking unexpected location stops for their final swing into the election day. Sunday, Trump headlining a rally at Madison Square Garden in Manhattan. Today, Harris in Texas with a message on, quote, the serious consequences of Trump's abortion bans to women's lives, according to the campaign. And reportedly joining her on stage tonight, the artist behind her official campaign theme song, Freedom, Beyonce, as well as Willie Nelson. Serena Marshall, Scripps News, Atlanta, Georgia.
Still to come on the MTN 430 News here on Q2, gearing up for another weekend on the gridiron. We'll have the preview for the Grizz game tomorrow as the Cats rest up on their bye week. But first, Jason will be in with the full forecast as the fall weather is starting to officially arrive. Stay with us. We'll be right back.